Hey, welcome to Eden Fractal. We're in our 86th event, and we're very pleased that you're here watching. I'm very pleased to be here with Tadas and Eric and Rosmari, and I think we're going to discuss Eden Fractal strategy today. So buckle in, it's going to be a fun one, I think. Of course, feel free to say hello or give a wave or anything like that. We've been having some interesting discussions going into it, but we're going to jump right in, and I suppose I'll just get right into sharing a little introductory presentation as well to show what we're up to. Okay, so if you're not familiar, EdenFractal.com, welcome. Everybody's very welcome to be here and welcome to be watching and joining every week. We're a community. We create innovative games, shows, and tools, and we're using some of our innovative games and shows and tools to form our vision, form our mission, and do all sorts of great stuff that you could learn a lot about by exploring our website, EdenFractal.com. We recently formed our vision that we believe that all communities and organizations have the tools and methods to make the best possible decision-making fast, fair, and fun. And we are building these tools, and we've been using some of these tools and methods for the past almost 2 years now. We have weekly events where people play consensus games, and then you can propose a topic, and everybody can RSVP. Everybody's welcome to join. And we produce videos of every event. We produce over 80 videos, about 85 of them now, and we're doing the 86th now. And you can also check out the tools we use and more at EdenFractal.com. And of course, you can join us on Telegram, t.me/EdenFractal, and several other chats like the Fractally chat, where Rosemary puts out these nice warm reminders and warm invitations for everyone to join. As she wrote today, we have an exciting proposal to play the Respect game to create our strategy. And in the strategy game, we're planning to define, or at least explore, products and consumers and target markets and go-to-market strategies for fractal communities. People can learn more in a post that I shared. And of course, everybody's welcome to join our events. lou.mod/EdenFractal. We have these every Wednesday at 16 UTC. They're an hour long, and encourage everyone to join and get involved and also invite friends and share. And of course, you can also watch the videos too. So EdenFractal.com/videos. We have videos of each event. The most recent one we released is the 82nd event, Path Forward, Next Steps, where we discuss the next steps for Eden Fractal in 2024. And the Galleon Gardeners played a new kind of respect game to chart a course towards a world of the fast, fair, and fun decision making. And we've also discussed the vision and lots of other stuff that you can explore in the previous ones. But that's basically been kind of the theme that we've been discussing about our next steps and what is our mission and how will we achieve that vision, basically. You can watch all the videos from both Eden Fractal event and the Optimism Fractal and many other fractals and many other exciting shows and events on the Eden Careers YouTube channel. I encourage you to check it out and share with friends. Lots of great shows there. And we also host an event called Optimism Fractal where people play a respect game and all sorts of cool stuff happens every Monday at 17 UTC, which I encourage you to join too. At Eden Fractal, we play a game that we call Agendas, where basically people can vote with respect to discuss different topics. And so I put up a topic proposal about Eden Fractal strategy. Basically, I wrote strategy is a high-level plan or a set of guiding principles that outlines how we'll set priorities, focus our energy, and collaborate towards common goals. And while we were discussing our mission last week and over the past several weeks, we came up with a few kind of key strategic questions that I think can really help us inform our mission and align our actions and achieve that vision. So that's what I proposed today, that we play a strategy game. And it's like a traditional respect game. Each player will take up to 5 minutes to share their thoughts about what our strategy should be and help define our strategy. And I think maybe we can start out with like a few minutes of just each person gets a chance to write as well and think it over. And we've done that in the past, and that can work out well too. And then I started off with four like kind of key strategic questions that kind of came up in discussion last week that I figured it's well worth honing in on. And those questions are: what are the products of Eden Fractal? Who are the consumers of these products? What are the target markets? And what is the go-to market strategy? And I created a template with more details where you can see more. And so everybody's welcome to duplicate this template. I'll show it in a minute. And you can write your answers there. And of course, if you have other ideas about our strategy, then feel free to contribute as that as well. And then if we feel like it, we don't need to, but it's an option and it could be fun, it could be exciting. We could play the respect game and reach consensus to each player's contributions to discussion and then signal on chain before the game ends, and then we'll each earn respect if we do so. So far, I think this is the only topic. Feel free to correct me, but this has a vote, so this is what we will play here. And then this is basically following up on next steps. I don't know why that was there. And then you can find the template and more details here, the Eden Fractal Community Notion site. I just started reorganizing this into like kind of a cool database view of gallery. So now you can see different respect games that we've played over the past few months now. And we have all the vision games that we played. For example, if you wanted to see how we came to consensus about our vision, you can see here. And these are all our discussions, or not all of it, but at least some of the notes that we took. And then we have the videos, of course, at edenfractal.com/vision. And the mission, we have other games we've played here about the mission. And I just created a new one for a strategy game. And then on this page here, and also in the Telegram group, you can find the template as well as more details about that. And the template, if anybody wants to use it, it's optional, but I'm planning to use it, and I think it could be helpful as a way to kind of start up the discussion and help inspire and help us get aligned on what to discuss. Basically, there's a little overview, which I kind of went over there, and anybody can duplicate this. You can also write directly on the page, but it might just be cleaner if we duplicate it. And then these are the 4 questions, and for each of these questions, I just provide a little bit more detail about what is a product, or in other words, what does Eden Fractal produce? Who are consumers? Or in other words, who consumes Eden Fractal's products? And for each of these, it has a more formal definition, like it's an individual group who purchases or use goods or services to satisfy needs or wants, all this stuff too, because a lot of I think our products are more so free and like they're open source software, they're public goods, who can join the events, stuff like that. All these are kind of open to interpretation, and it says here whether the transaction is financial or free. So that's something you can keep in mind. And on what are our target markets, like groups of consumers that we're aiming to target and help out and help to use and benefit from our products, and then what is the go-to-market strategy. In other words, what will we build, who will we contact, and how will we collaborate with them? So these are some questions that came up throughout the course of the meeting last week, and I'm also open to discussing other things too if people want, but this is my thinking about the best thing to discuss, and I'm excited to hear everybody's thoughts about our strategy. With that, that's the end of my little presentation there. Thanks for listening. Very curious to hear your thoughts. And then if anyone wants to just go ahead and share any thoughts now, then feel free. I would also suggest what we could do is maybe if we want to take a few minutes to just write out our thoughts. I was aiming to get that shared early in the week, but I know some of it might be new now. So you might not have had much time to think about because I just shared it a couple hours ago. So if we wanted to take a couple minutes or 5 minutes or whatever to just quietly write our own thoughts, then discuss, and we each take turns to share, then we could do that, or we could just jump right into conversation.
But first of all, last week we were working on our mission, and we had 4 missions that were starting to converge. Do you have the link for those 4 missions?
Yes. Good idea. I should have showed that. So, let me pull that up right now. Okay, and I also did get.
I think we're pretty close to getting a mission.
Yeah, so we could just return to the mission if we want. My thinking with the strategy was that I think that it'll be helpful to figure out a strategy and answer these questions to determine our mission, because that kind of kept coming up, like, well, what are our products and who are we aiming to reach out to and stuff like that. So we could just focus specifically on the mission if we want. But yeah, I just pulled up on the screen. It's still blurry. I still haven't figured out that issue. So my apologies, that's a goal for me. But you can see on this screen here, and I'll also share a link in the Telegram chat here. Oops, I just shared something else there. But yeah, I shared a link in the Telegram chat to the mission that is currently up right now, or the mission page. And so if we want, we can go over these missions again. You can see the proposal for the mission that I shared here. Maybe I'll zoom in a bit more so you can see them. Oh, nope, that's as close as it goes. And then a proposal that Eric made for the mission here, a proposal that Tadas made for the mission here, and a proposal that Rosmari made for the mission here. If anyone wants to reiterate that, or if you had any follow-up thoughts about any of these missions, then please feel free to share, or please feel free to just, if you want to read it out loud, but otherwise people can read it on the screen as well, and that can help us perhaps guide the discussion of the strategy, or if we want to just focus on the mission, that's cool too.
I think we should look at each of those and just say what's most important and build one. I would say we've got some good building blocks there that we could put together and create a mission.
Okay. Sounds good. Well, I'm curious what Tadas and Rosmari think as well. So do you prefer to play just to kind of continue a mission game like we did last week and just stick with the mission? Or does it make sense to do?
I think we're so close. We may be able to do it. Finish it this time, next time at the least, and then we'll actually have a vision, at least a working vision or mission. If we do want to move on to strategy, we should probably have a talk on what strategy is. Getting my doctorate in strategy, I find that most people say they want to have one, but they can't tell you what a strategy is. So it's kind of interesting to at least get you on the same page of what we're trying to create, a strategy. And finally, you mentioned target markets. I think it's probably important to clarify the difference between market segments and target markets. Being that market segments are people we could group together and go after, and there's a reason why you create segments. And target markets being, of these segments, here's who we're going to focus on. Because target segments change less often. Target markets can change more, because after you get one target, you can keep with it and work on another one.
Okay, good points. Yeah, I also, for a bit of context, I spent quite a lot of time with ChatGPT over the past week and asking about strategy, the definition of strategy, and how it could be useful, and also about all those different things I looked at as far as the target market and consumers and go-to-market strategy and target markets. I was kind of just asking and thinking about some different terms we can actually use and then finding out the best way to put it. And one of the things that ChatGPT said is that it's often best to have a mission first before you come up with a strategy, because oftentimes the mission is kind of like, how are you going to get there? And then the strategy is kind of like more in the details about how you get to that mission, or how you achieve that mission.
Agreed, but we haven't finished the mission yet.
So. Yeah. But then I also further asked ChatGPT, and I was like, but can it sometimes be helpful to come up with a strategy first? Because
so actually, we've got a great paper, which I might have shared with you before, which talks about the order of organizational development based on our research as culture, strategy, structure, and operations, in that order, and they feed on each other. So as you move one, you have to go back and feed on the other one in there. So yeah, there's no doubt that there's a link between strategy and and mission and vision is really part of culture too. So there's no doubt that they feed on each other. And if you change one, you have to go back. In fact, all three of those. When you change something in operation, you might have to go back and even change your culture. When you change a culture, that may have a difference and effect on strategy and structure and operations. So they are fluid and dependent on each other, with feedback loops between each of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
that's
totally.
a great point.
Mm-hmm.
But I'm a fan of at least writing one mission down, which we realize may change when we work on strategy, as opposed to having 4 missions and then coming up with strategy.
Okay, well, good points. I'm curious about Tadas and Rosmari's thoughts about this too, and I suppose I'll just go ahead while I'm still talking and share. Yeah, so I'm open to continuing with mission, but yeah, it was basically like last week, for example, as we were discussing the mission, one of the things that came up is like, well, who are we trying to appeal to? Because different audiences might have different things that they like to hear. Maybe some audiences want to hear about consensus games, or some audiences want to hear about workflows or mechanisms, or similarly, we're talking like, well, what are our products? That question came up too, and so that kind of naturally weaved in to determine the mission. And so my thinking was we could focus on these first to really flesh it out, and then come back with a mission after that. But then again, we also could just come up with a mission. We could come to at least like a kind of a tentative consensus, or something that we think is good enough of a mission, with the idea in mind that we could come to the strategy afterwards and then come back to the mission and be open to changing that mission based upon what we came with the strategy.
I think it's easier to make changes to one mission template than it is to make changes to 4 as we go through strategy.
Okay.
But our iteration on the strategy might inform our consensus on which mission, like what things to stress more, for example, and so on. I'm kind of with Dan here. I think like it will take a lot of effort to choose one out of these 4, at least from my perspective, because there were some disagreements about like what we want to stress and what we want to eliminate. And yeah, I think it makes sense to do strategy at first, because it might inform our mission and then do another iteration on the mission. That being said, I would maybe have a discussion about a strategy first before trying to come up with one.
Okay, sounds good. That's also kind of how I'm thinking about it too. And I think in some sense, discussing the strategy is discussing the mission because, like, to come to consensus about the mission, I think we'll basically have to discuss some of those strategic matters, like what are the products and so forth. Curious, Rosmari, do you have any thoughts? The top voted thing on Kagendas is the strategy game, so we could do that as we go, or we could always just kind of if we want to change our mind, we could. But I'm curious if Rosmari, you have thoughts, or maybe we should just start the strategy game, or
Give it a go to the strategy game.
okay, you said give it a go to the strategy game.
Mhm.
Okay. Okay, sounds good. So I hope that's cool with you, Eric, and we'll for sure come back to the mission soon. And we can also refer to the mission. And of course, while anybody is working on their responses to the strategy, part of the strategy can be the mission. So feel free to try to craft a response to the mission as you're doing that. And then if we want, we could take a couple minutes, like I said before, to just work on our strategy and each think about it. Maybe if Rosmi wants to put music on again, then we can have a couple minutes of just thinking about it, and then maybe we'll each take 5 minutes to play, or up to 5 minutes, or maybe up to 4 minutes, depending on how much time we have to share what we think the strategy should be. Otherwise, we could just have kind of an open discussion, and then kind of bounce around. But I do like the structure of the respect game, where each person takes 4 or 5 minutes, and we get to hear people's strategies kind of in their own first, and then after that we can have a more open discussion. So that's why I'd suggest that we go through what Rosemary said and do the strategy game as we played. I'll share this template in the chat once again. I already shared it in a hypertext link, but I'll just share it again here in the live chat. And if anybody wants to duplicate this, then you could. The way you could do that is just go up to the top right corner and then click on this little dot 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 thing, and then scroll down to where it says duplicate. And then you'd have your own version, and then you could write, like, for example, what I did was I wrote like Dan's version over there. So, I mean, feel free, you don't need to use this template, of course, but this template does have some questions that it could be helpful. If anybody else has any questions you think that we should answer in the strategy, then feel free. But the questions that this has is, what are our products? Who are our consumers? What are our target markets? And what is our go-to-market strategy? Is everybody good with the idea of does anybody have a strong preference either way about whether we should just jump in and if somebody wants to start answering, or maybe we take a few minutes and maybe put up a timer and I see Rosemary said she can't share a screen because it's disabled. Okay, well, I'll make it so everybody can share the screen in case you want to.
Okay, how long are we gonna take each? Or not each, but until we draft our answers.
How about 4 minutes?
Okay.
Tasha, you keep jumping in and out. What we were discussing is that I think we'll take 4 minutes to just draft our answers, and we'll put up a timer, and then we'll start, and each person will take turns after that. Sound good? Good with you?
Yep.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. All right, that's 4 minutes. I see Eric shared some images in the chat a moment ago. Would any of you like to go first and share what they think should be the strategy for Eden Fractal?
I will listen. I'm interested to hear what other people say about strategy.
Okay, sounds good. Tadas or Rosmari, would you like to go first? I could go first if you'd like, but if anyone else wants to go first, then you'd be welcome to. Or we could also take another minute or two to get ready too, if you're not quite ready. That was kind of, I'm not as ready as I want to be either. So what's up?
That's what I was gonna ask. If we want another minute.
That would be fine by me.
Okay.
It is kind of a lot of questions that we're trying to answer here. So, and also it doesn't have to be perfect, of course, too. So this is kind of just like a first one, and we could discuss it more in future meetings too. Okay, it looks like another minute has passed. Is anybody ready to go? If you want, I can go. Mine isn't super well prepared, but it's something, so I can go and lead it if you want. Or
Yes,
Tadas, if
Dan,
you want to go
please
first.
go.
Yeah.
Please go. I will copy you.
Okay. Sounds good. Maybe I'll go ahead and share my screen again. It's a little bit of a mess. It's been a while preparing the game and stuff, and so I didn't get a chance to organize the answers to the game so well. But I'll go ahead and if you want to put up a 4 minute timer for me, Rosemary, then I can go and share what my version of the strategy is now. Okay, so thank you very much. I'll go ahead and share what I think should be the strategy, and specifically answering these questions about our products, consumers, target markets, and go-to-market strategy. So product, I started to put it into a database view here because I think that's easier. I'd written notes before, but basically I categorize it into like, I guess, 6 or 7 main categories, which is games, events, apps, videos, education, consulting, consensus. Apps could also be tools too, like Fractogram, Fractal app, and then more tools I think we could also help promote to help people reach consensus. I think the main product is games or consensus games, and my thinking is the respect game is at the core. And at some point I can add like description and stuff. But then a game that I've been thinking about introducing, which I like the idea of, is a game called Copinions, which is basically like the idea of making community opinions or cooperative opinions. I actually had a page over here where I can share you what I've been working on this with Optimism Fractal as a way to introduce it. I talked about it a little bit with Tadas and Rosmari so far, but I think I haven't shared it much yet. It's kind of like an early draft, but the idea is that Copinions is a new consensus game. It's a portmanteau of community opinions or consensus opinions or something like that. And then there's like different versions of the game, like what we play in Eden Fractal. We call it Eden plus Fractal. We can call it captains maybe. And then there could be a council version, and it's kind of a lot to go into here. But basically, like I see different game modes as ways that people can use respect or use the fractal process to make decisions. And like a core is kind of like where everybody's voting with respect. A council is where people form councils based on how much respect people have. Captains is like people electing delegates or captain at each breakout room. And Concord is like a combination of that, where people can get like multipliers and points based upon a delegation. These are kind of like early drafts ideas. I had a lot of conversations with ChatGPT about this as well, and like and I found some pretty cool branding, but it can also change. But I think that's like one of our main products, like the respect game that we play each week and the variations of it, and then this kind of opinions game. I thought about the name Consonants too and open to different branding, as I said, but I do like it as a way to make decisions together using respect, and then Kagendas as a way to organize meetings and schedules and stuff like that. And then there's also more games we played too, like like Fractal DJ and pitches and speeches and different variations that also use the respect game and scores and stuff like that. And then there's events from Eden Fractal and other communities, Open Mic Nights, Optimism Fractal, and the education, which we can do like certifications, consulting services. We can also offer a form of consensus as a service. I know Tadas had a message about how we want to identify that, but the fact that, like, for example, with Alien Worlds, how we were able to help pick somebody to help lead a planet, or with Retro PGF, we can offer consensus. So those are our products at a high level overview. Our consumers, I think consumers is a better word than customers. I actually wrote customers there, but maybe I'll change that right there. Or maybe it's not giving me an option right now because I actually just deleted back. And so the consumers are the event participants, people who might want to fund what we're doing, and hosts and community leaders who want to use this with their own community, or organizational leaders who want to use it with their own organization, as well as developers and content creators to help build what we're building and help build the tools. And I can go in more details about that, but I only have like 40 seconds left, so I'll go pretty quick. And the target markets, I have Optimism, Ethereum, the wider Web3 and public goods ecosystems, and then like a very broad range of potential target markets, like musicians, video creators, engineers, scientists, local communities. I haven't even finished writing them, like local communities, governments, businesses, all of these things like that. And particularly, I wrote one thing about ARC, which is that thing that Jordan Peterson is doing, which is a really cool initiative for Alliance of Responsible Citizenship, and they're kind of interested in doing this kind of fractal thing to improve the world. There's a lot of great world leaders there as well. I talked about that and can share some more details in the future. So, and then go-to-market strategy, like there's a lot of different consumers there that we could potentially market to. And so my thinking is our go-to-market strategy, like Optimism and Web3, have like an immediate opportunity, and then there's been proven success there where people have wanted the service, and there's product market fit and stuff like that. But there's also lots of other ideas, like I'm very interested in the connections that Eric has, for example, with the nonprofits, and I'm interested in the idea of like helping these big communities like ARC and so forth. But for the go-to-market strategy, what seems to make the most sense to me right now is to focus mostly on Optimism Web3, but also I'm open to doing it differently as well. But that just seems like where the most immediate opportunity is. So I went about 30 seconds over there, but that's kind of my overview of the products, consumers, target markets, and the go-to-market strategy. Does anyone want to go next?
Thanks, Dan.
You're welcome.
Do you have a link to your page?
Yes, I will share that right now. I'll share it in the Telegram chat.
I can go next because it's 40 past, so in interest of time, I'll try to go very quickly too.
Okay, sounds good. Thanks, Rosmari, and my apologies for going a bit long there.
All right, so what are our products? Our products are events, the tools, articles, hosting events, event recordings and production, personal consulting, teaching people through courses on how to run fractal communities. For our customers, our consumers actually are a group of people, including anyone interested in fractal democracy, any communities and organizations, and Web3 enthusiasts. What are our target markets? Web3 communities, communities interested in decentralization and leadership. And I'll probably add also in-person communities too, but for right now, I think Web3 is more so describing it better. What is our go-to-market strategy? Working in Web3 spaces such as Ethereum, EOS, and more Web3 and in-person communities, community gatherings or events, applying for grants too. That's it. Would like to go next. I'll share the page in the chat too.
Thank you, Rosmari. Sounds great. If you did want to add anything, then feel free, of course. But otherwise, I think Tadas, if you want to go next, or I think Eric said he's going to listen. I don't know if Eric, you're a bit inspired to share your ideas for the strategy. Or if Tadas, you want to go next?
I can go next, and then Eric will correct everyone.
Okay.
Okay. I will share my screen. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, so I was kind of short here. So what are our products, decision-making protocols, like consensus games, respect game, and so on, and consulting. That's currently the main two that I see. Who are our consumers, organizations, and communities? What are our target markets, DAOs and blockchain platforms, which could be also be seen as DAOs. I see a lot of potential for our tools to be used in real life communities, and not just blockchain communities, but I think it's a good sandbox to test on these blockchain communities first. At least from my perspective, I'm focusing there first, and yes, go to market strategy. So what we are already doing, for example, with Optimistic, so launching DAOs that would contribute to other DAOs or blockchain platforms. Yeah, that's it.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tadas. So what now? Is Eric going to correct people, or is Eric going to share a strategy? Or I don't know if Tadas or Rosmari, you want to add
Well,
anything else on there, or if we should come to
so
consensus, or?
yeah, so for me, I prefer to think of stakeholders versus consumers when you think of strategy, because it's not just it's not just who you buy from, it's people who influence you. So stakeholders could be, for example, even suppliers, for example. So when you look at that, we want to think that who's everybody in the chain. For example, we didn't really talk about developers. And I think developers, for example, could be a stakeholder, somebody who has an interest in that. I think kind of, Dan, you started by going to these particular groups, Optimism, these groups, which I think is good. But I also like that Rosmari took a step back and said, wait a minute, what categories are we looking for? What makes and that's typically what when you look for market segments, you look for people who have this problem and solve this problem the same way, and who talk to each other is a good way to look at market segments. Because what you're saying is, if I was to do, because they're market segments, if I was to do a marketing strategy, who could I hit with one campaign? For example, nonprofits and game creators are probably not going to be hit with the same messaging and the same media. So they require different marketing campaigns. So you're going like, well, what groups, what makes them, what do they have in common that makes them a potential segment, somebody that we could go over with the same messaging and things like that. So, the way I look at segments, the first thing I look at is who has challenges making or is concerned about making good decisions. Because we're looking at what drives them to come to us, or when we approach them. So if we were to say, gee, who likes fractal governance? That may not be our best segment to start. But if we look at people that have a real problem, which is making good decisions or getting buy-in from their consumers. So I would say, when we look at segments, we take a step back and say, what makes a segment? So that's the first thing. We also kind of went heavily into blockchain and all of that. Well, I think blockchain are tools and definitely a stakeholder. I'm not sure that's as important, especially when we talk about doing local groups. Like yesterday, I've talked to 3 nonprofits, and none of them came to me and said, what we're really worried about is blockchain. Blockchain's our #1 criteria. So could you please help us all get wallets? And I mean, that wasn't even in any of their their things. And even when I talk to a lot of people like in alien worlds, for example, there's some very heavy enthusiasts, but there's a lot of people that go, yeah, I got this wallet because you showed me how, and now let's get to doing things. So that would be my number one criteria. And we look at strategy. Something we need to think about is resources and capabilities. What resources do we have, or do we want to create? And number two, and there's a good diagram in there, and what do we want to do with those capabilities? And that's that connection with your capabilities and resources that give you that competitive advantage when you combine those with act. That's a pretty good, one of my favorite diagrams you can look at in the chat.
Interesting. Thank you, Eric. I think I'll try to pull up this diagram so people who are watching can see it as well. And yeah, those are good points. I'd asked and thought about stakeholders too, and I agree that that might be a better word than consumers. I kind of made that decision with consumers right before the meeting because I wasn't sure how to best phrase it. But
well, there's no doubt consumers are stakeholders, but there are people that aren't going to consume your product that are going to have an interest. You know, the typical stakeholder we always look at is government. They're not going to make any money. They're going to regulate us. So if we ever get that, I mean, that's just an example.
Wait, what are you saying? They're not going to what?
For example, government is usually a stakeholder in a lot of things that don't consume. I'm just using them as an example. You know, if you do things with blockchain, they're not going to consume any of your blockchain products, but they're going to want to have a say. So they have an interest. So a stakeholder is anybody who has an interest. The consumer is someone who's actually going to consume your product. That's why they're consumers.
Right. Yeah, I see Rosmari giving the thumbs up. And yeah, I went back and forth to ChatGPT about stakeholder and consumer. And consumer, like it can work with like, for example, you mentioned developers and builders, and I mentioned that briefly. I didn't get the chance to go into it much, but that's for sure. We want to attract people to help build these tools and design the methods and so forth. And to some extent, they are a type of consumer of the events.
Yep.
And
They can
and so
be.
forth.
And a producer, the big thing you learn with multi-sided ecosystem platforms is consumers can be producers. So they even have a word for somebody that's both. So you have producers, consumers, and you have some people that consume and produce at the same time within an ecosystem.
Yeah, that's part of what I was thinking about with like consumer and like first Eden Fractal as the producer, and then who is consuming the production of Eden Fractal, which was the way that I kind of put it in my mind. But there's lots of other points that you made there that are very interesting as well too. So we can go into those. There's only 10 minutes left scheduled in the meeting too. I know I've been speaking a lot too, so I'm curious, Tadas, if you have thoughts about this. I suppose regarding the blockchain, there are communities using blockchain as well. So blockchain is both a tool, but it's also, you know, there's communities and organizations formed around blockchain. And so that was one of my thinkings in that these communities and organizations that are formed using a blockchain are one, there's a lot of funding there. There's a lot of people who like what we're doing already. They understand the value of using blockchain, and these networks also they're quite large and could be a good place to attract, you know, people and all those different consumers who might.
Yeah, I'm just saying
it's to the tool being used.
I'm just saying it's not the blockchain. It's the fact they need to make decisions about the block. That's the draw for that segment when I look at it.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, why do they need us? Because they have all this technology and DAOs and stuff like that. They do that because even with that, they still have trouble making decisions and having people feel good about those decisions. So buy-in can be one, better decision making, buy-in by their base, sense of fairness, things we do. Those are things we look about when we're building segments, is what are these common things. Segments are people who you generally have a common problem that they solve the same way, they look at the problem the same way, and they talk to each other. Those are the three characteristics that you typically want to have for a segment. Because otherwise, you're not going to get any viral sharing if they don't talk to each other, and you're going to need different messaging. So if we all look at a problem the same way, we can hit each other. We can hit all of us with the same message. But a different group needs a different message, slightly tweaked in a different way.
Okay, sounds great. Thanks so much for all the guidance and wisdom. And yeah, I hadn't thought about the word market segments. I remember hearing about that like in college and throughout the years, but the phrase didn't come up to my mind until until you just mentioned it. And maybe that is more appropriate than target market, or at least something that's definitely seems worth considering. I'm also just gonna, I don't know if you can really see this. Maybe it's better if I just share the screen to show the stuff that Eric shared. Another point is that it's 8 minutes at the top of the hour, and so we could start wrapping it up whenever. I know we said that we could play a respect game, so we could do that if we want to start Fractogram. Also, we could just have a discussion for the next 10 minutes or so and save that for another time. I know this is kind of like it's kind of like a first discussion. Most people didn't have time to prepare, other than me. I had a bit of time to prepare, so no need to do a respect game. But if we want to do that, we could do that now. Or I'm curious, Das or Rosmari, if you have any thoughts you want to share in response to what Eric shared, or Eric, you want to add anything else? Or I also pulled this up on the screen too. It's a bit blurry, but I can pull it up with full screen. If you want to share any more about these resources you shared, Eric, you shared about the SWOT analysis, strengths, weakness, opportunities, and threats.
I would on that diagram that talks about resources, core competencies, and capabilities, I think is an yeah, I think that was it. Yeah.
Okay.
Because that's really where the rubber meets the road. You get stuff is what resources do we have we're going to create, what capabilities, what can we do with those resources. Like Notion could be a resource, but it's what we can do with that. The combination of resources and what you can do with that is what makes us different. That's our core capabilities. And then it's like, well, what do we do with those capabilities? That's what gives us a competitive advantage. And then, as you mentioned, that keeps feeding back because the world changes. And that's kind of an important thing to think about. So when you talk about resources, and when we talk about tools or games, those are resources. Capabilities is what we can do with those. Putting those together gives us the core capabilities, and that's actually what we sell. So the core capabilities are what we are selling to, and the activities are what we are actually selling to these segments. So if we go to blockchain, it's we have this, here's what we can do for you. This is why this is what drives our messaging.
Okay, good points. Thank you, Eric. And yeah, I agree that it's very important to think about how we'll organize these resources. And I'm looking forward to watching this again. I think it'd be educational for everybody who's watching. I did pull up on the screen because I saw Rosemary said it's a bit hard to see, so I can try to fix my blurry thing in the future. But it's on the screen now, so I don't know if you want to add anything more about this, Eric. And then you also had the two other infographics, I suppose, or I don't know exactly what to call them. Infographics works, I suppose, and this one is about industry.
That's from a scientific paper we produced. But you can see that we start with this idea of culture. And after you build culture, we use those people, the culture, to build strategy. Then we build a structure that supports delivering that strategy. And then we create the operations which drive that. You can see there's links back to do that, but that's actually how we do organizational development. But I think it's a good picture. But you notice in there we have strategic games.
Yeah.
Under strategy. I thought you would like that.
I did, yeah, I was going to comment on that. That was like exactly what we're doing now. So we must have checked out this chart in advance. I saw Rosemary's giving a heart too, so that's nice. Maybe we'll do scenario planning and agility in the future weeks. Okay, well, that looks like a very helpful and interesting chart too. So, or infographic. Thanks for sharing that.
That's kind of the first chart. That's what we're doing. Well, what do? Is we go into the strategy, we're really figuring out what our competitive advantage is. So that's what resources and capabilities, core competencies, and then what activities, we can do with those. I mean, Rosmari mentioned one, which is events. Then I did kind of 2 tests that we do for evaluating our strategies. One is VRIO, valuable, rare, inimitable, and organized. Those are things which means nobody else can jump on board and just steal your strategy. It has to be valuable. It has to be rare. People can't be easily imitated, or they'll just copy it. And a lot of times, the organization, like even if somebody has everything you do, it's that organization, the way you're connected. Like some companies can give away everything. Here's our intellectual property. Oh, you still can't do it because you're not organized. Like, a lot of Apple's strength comes from the way it's organized. They're organized differently. So you'd almost have to duplicate Apple's organization. Sometimes that's hard to do. And then most people don't really understand the SWOT analysis. So we can talk about that at a future. But SWOT analysis is after you have this thing, it's what do you focus on next, where if you look at the top 2, the top row is really about us and the bottom row is really about them. What are we doing? Then what are we doing that we haven't done that we could do? And then what do we either have to watch out for or plan for? So these are all good strategic tools. And I think that just kind of kicks the base to what you talked about, which is the stakeholders, and that's looking for people who have a common problem that they see the same way. They would try and solve it the same kind of way and talk to each other. So we should define groups on what are those problems, how do they communicate, because that would be our strategy on how we roll this stuff out, which was part of what your key is. How do we roll it out? Well, it depends on who they are, because they talk differently and they talk in different places. Anyway, now you have some insight on actually how we come up with corporate and some nonprofit strategies. I actually did a lot of this with the Maritime Alliance when we created that.
All right. Well, thank you so much, Eric. There's a lot of wisdom there, and I'm looking forward to diving into that. And I think that could be very helpful for guiding our discussions about this and honing in on our strategy as well as our mission and how we'll engage with stakeholders. So really appreciate that. I see Rosmari said, thanks for sharing, Eric. And she said a good old SWOT. That's right. And yeah, we're at the top of the hour now, so I suppose we can wrap it up now or at any time if anyone has any last thoughts. But that's all really great. I feel like this has been a very productive and interesting meeting. And then all this stuff is here. I'll also maybe share Eric's the picture that Eric shared in the Telegram chat for anybody who wants to review that, and we'll publish the video as soon as we can. And then that template and everybody's versions, they're also there too, in case you wanted to use that and work on it throughout the week or share any other ideas there. And then for next week, we can perhaps play another strategy game or a mission game, or maybe have a good old SWOT game or something like that. I don't know. There's lots of different things that we can do as next steps, and I think we're on a good path.
I'll just bring up one other thing is once you choose target markets out of your segments, the reason why you have target markets is you have to create positioning for each target market. So you can have a bunch of segments, but when you target somebody, you have to come up with your positioning. How do they see us? What is our story for that group of people? And it may not be one individual organization. It may be like blockchain producers, that would one. So what is our positioning for blockchain? For nonprofit organizations, completely different positioning, even though the core capabilities are the same. The positioning is different. So maybe I'll throw up a positioning document next week.
Sounds great. Looking forward to it. It reminds me a little bit of I've been working a lot with Rosmari, and we've been working on our positioning, I suppose, is a way to put it, for marketing different communities like the fractal communities, the Optimism, the EOS, and so forth. And we're working on database of different things to say to different different audiences. So that's for sure. It's a good thing to look into. And since our products, I think, are so accessible and helpful for everyone, really, it's important to think about the different segments and then how we'll position it to the different segments and which segments are most helpful to target, going forward for our, given our strategic
What
resources, so that we can get to
when
everybody
I
hoping with our vision.
when I my marketing students as a professor, this is actually what we do. We actually get something to go through this whole thing, and people have started whole companies. They've gone out of my class and started companies, or they've taken a family business and they've improved it. So I just want to get the idea that this is real stuff. It's not just academic. This is take people and actually do it. And this is what I've done with nonprofits and commercial companies.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm excited about it. I really appreciate you being here, Eric, to help guide us and convey some of this wisdom, as well as Rosmari and Tadas. I'm really excited about this. I think that, um, well, yeah, we're doing it here. Basically, we're having the lesson where everybody can share and everybody can watch, and then we're also learning for ourselves. And I think we're in a good position to have an awesome strategy and mission. And I resonate with the heart that Rosemary sent out there. I think there's a couple other things I'm gonna say, but I don't really know what they were. Does anybody else have any thoughts before we wrap it up, or should we're already a couple minutes over time, so we could wrap it up now? I suppose we're ready to go, and I don't remember what I was gonna say. So I could save it for next week, or I could save it for another time. And yeah, encourage everyone to think about this. And then feel free, of course, to make a topic proposal for next week if you'd like. Otherwise, I can also propose a similar topic proposal, whether it be the strategy or mission or whatever else. And you can check out the Telegram, t.me/Eden Fractal, and share any comments there as well. I encourage everyone to join our meetings every week on Wednesday at 16 UTC. These are welcome for everyone to join and contribute your ideas. And then, yeah, we can also save it. We can do a respect game for this in the future as well. With that, thanks everybody so much for joining. Hope you have a wonderful time. This has been Eden Fractal's 86th meeting. We're almost at 2 years now. It's been such a pleasure. We could wrap it up with a Go Eden Fractal, which maybe I'll lead. And I'll go 3, 2, 1, 0, and go Eden Fractal.
Oh, Eden Fractal.
Woohoo! All right, thanks all.